Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Highly Unsolicited Book Reviews for Invested Spouses.
Well,
my name is Jess.
My name is Mark.
And today we are going to be doing a July reading recap.
Oh, yeah. Jess has powered through 53 books in the past month. So we got a lot of content to do. We're going to do a quick snapshot. Even if we did a minute a book, this would be an hour-long episode.
It's good that I read a lot of series, and not all of them are full-length novels. Like, a lot of them I found to be multiple books, but they all either are a continual story or very, very short in nature. So that's why the number is so large. I didn't read like 53 novels that were all like 400 pages long. Not at all.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it seemed like you were kind of on a kick of like, you know, it's interesting. In this genre of like romance novels, you do end up getting these shorter stories almost. Where
I do.
It's like a little self-encapsulated love story, but then within all these love stories, there's side characters, and then the next book series is on the side characters, and the next book series is on the next side characters. So
yeah, so like just like as a page number reference for the books that I did read digitally, over 39% of them are under 300 pages, and 39% of them are over 500 pages.
Jeez,
and
that's still a lot.
22% of them were between 300 and like 499 pages. And then for audiobook lengths, I read 25% of them were more than 16 hours, 36% of them were 8 to 16 hours, and 39% of them were less than 8 hours.
Yes, but it must be mentioned that you do listen on chipmunk mode. So.
I do listen at double speed. So 60% of those books were audiobooks and 40% were digital reads, like ebooks. So I did actually do a decent amount of e-reading this month, which was kind of nice to get back to. I enjoy e-reading. I don't get through books as quickly when I physically read them, but
our toddler has been she went through a bit of a sleep regression, but now we're back in the happy space where she still needs obviously all the love and attention she deserves, but she is back to doing some independent play, which is nice.
She also is at daycare 3 days a week, and I'm currently on vacation before I return from maternity leave, so I've had lots of time to read.
Excuse me, I'm gonna cut that out. And also, listener, you may have noticed, if you were listening to the last episode and we seemed like we were in some kind of delirious fog, it is because we were both sick with some kind of nasty cold. Probably heard it in my voice. I don't think it had quite hit Jess at that point. But we're both feeling a lot better, so we're here to give you that awesome content that you crave. I literally looked at the Spotify for podcasters, and it was like 1 listen in the past week, and I'm like, God, I'm pretty sure that was Jess.
Okay, it might have been me.
It's fine. We're just doing this to hang out. It's for us.
Yeah.
Although I do like to break the fourth wall and talk directly to the listener every once in a while.
Yeah.
So, without further ado,
because we have a lot to cover. So, dear listener, now that I've done our 8-minute preamble like I do at the start of every episode, it takes forever to start anything. I just like talking. I like hearing my own voice. You know? Yeah.
Let's hop into some of these books. So, first series we're going to talk about is Legacy of the Gods. This is the first book here was God of Malice.
Yeah, so that's actually the only book that I read from this series, because I quickly found out that this is one of those series that the author has multiple series, but they all connect in some way. So this book in particular was the sons and daughters, I believe, of a different group of characters from a different series. So there's a whole lot of background that I didn't have. It wasn't necessary for this book.
But it says Legacy of Gods #1. It's the first in the series.
It's the first in the series, but again, this is a part 7 series of a larger series.
Oh, so this is like the Sanderverse.
So I
situation.
think the first series is that guy's grandparents and their love story. Yeah, so I realized that there's
this guy looks like an Abercrombie and Fitch. He's literally doing like he's like biting his knuckle, and he's shirtless on the cover.
I know. So I had heard some good things. I've been in,
You know who he reminds me of? He's like a mix of Klaus and the other serious brother from Vampire Diaries.
it does, yeah, kind of, yeah.
The two originals. If you took those two originals and sorry, we're going totally off topic. If you took those two originals and you mashed them together, that would be this dude.
Literally. So, this book, again, it was a dark romance. It spans multiple generations over multiple series. So that's actually why I stopped the series. Not because I wasn't interested in it, but because I just realized how vast it was. And I wasn't in a mind space where I could take on that many books. Because I feel
commitment.
because I felt like if I really wanted to dive into that series, I wanted to kind of start from the beginning. And there was just so many books. So I did take a step back, but it is a dark romance. It basically takes place at university, and there's this girl who her best friend committed suicide, and she is kind of going back to school on the heels of that, and she wants to kind of figure out what was happening at the end of his days to kind of make him make that decision. And she ends up getting in with this group of gentlemen who are a part of a sorority type situation, but they're more violent in nature. So like their threshing type activities are like, you go into a forest and you're chased by people with bats and chainsaws, and if you get hit or abused like by them, then you're out. Like it's like
What
yeah, like it was a dark romance. It was.
I'll be honest. I haven't heard anything about romance yet.
Yeah, well, the main girl ends up falling for the main guy, and he's a bit of a crazy. And yeah, it looks like it follows this group of individuals, and I did like it. It was a little bit different for me in terms of dark romances. I think I'm used to the quote unquote bad guy having some kind of like a hero arc. This guy he's not a hero. He is a villain through and through, but he does end up falling for the main character in his own way, of however way a psychopath can love somebody. So yeah, so it was really dark. It wasn't something that I wanted to get into, and it seemed like all of the books in those series had that kind of theme to it. So if you're looking for something dark, you're looking for something kind of stalkery, you're looking for something with a bit of gore and violence.
Why would people look for that?
Well, it's a whole genre, Mark. You don't judge people for what they like to read.
I clearly do.
If you're going to, then this list of July is gonna throw you off your rockets, because right. I dipped into some other things. Listen, so we don't like to shame. I don't shame people. You shouldn't shame people.
I'm wagging my finger a little bit.
It is what it's fiction, Mark.
I know. I'm joking. I'm joking. Okay, so we're moving away from that into what could be literally the cover of any Hallmark movie. We've got the Chester Springs series.
Chestnut Springs.
Chestnut Springs series, books 1, 2, and 3, it looks like.
Yes.
That is Flawless, Heartless, and Powerless.
Yes. Yeah, so that series, actually a friend of mine recommended it. It's a classic romance. It takes place in Canada. It's from Elsie Silver.
This one.
Yeah, and I read a previous book of hers in the month of June, so I had known that I wanted to get to this series, and it had been on my list for a while, and it was way more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. Like, the very first book is about a bull rider and his where he gets his main sponsor is milk, and
it's gotta be bagged milk though, right?
Yeah, and he is recorded.
Milk.
He's recorded saying that he hates milk, so he offends all of the Canadian dairy farmers that supported him, which he grew up on a ranch, so that's like his backbone, that's his community. Dang. So he's got like a bad reputation going around, so he's losing sponsors, and it's his like last season. Like, he's an older gentleman of this sport, and so his agent decides, okay, you need a babysitter for the next 6 weeks to make sure that you don't shove your foot in your mouth any further. So I'm going to send my daughter to basically be your babysitter. And she was a lawyer and is working for her dad. And they end up falling for each other. So that's the first book. It was... Again,
flawless.
When I heard something about a bull rider, I was like, I don't think I'm going to like this at all. But I really did. It was not too heavy on the bull riding aspect, which sometimes any books that pertain to sports can sometimes get a little bit really into the nitty gritty of the sport. And that's just not my jam. Just like I don't love reading very detailed war scenes or anything like that. That's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But this didn't do that. It was definitely focused on the romance. There was lots of tropes, ate it all up. Elsie Silver's a great writer. I love her characterization. I love her plots. I love her romance. It was really, really good.
Hey, you gave all of them, you gave a 4-star, 4-star, and then 3.75.
Yeah. So the next one I think is Heartless, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yes. So it's the main character from the first book's best friend.
The story about the lion.
And the main male character of the first book's brother, who's the next love interest.
Right.
He is a single dad, and he needs a nanny for the summer. So she's like, hey, I have this friend. She's not doing anything this summer. What about she comes and be's a nanny for you? And then they have a romance together. So that was really good. I've never really read a book that has the single dad trope. I know that's a big one in romance contemporary.
Single dad mowing the lawn, mopping the sweat off his brow.
Yeah. So, and since he's a rancher, he really has that rugged aspect to it. And she's like a city girl. So it's a really tropey, really good characters, good banter, good romance, really enjoyed it. And then Powerless, the reason why I didn't like this one as much is it was a childhood friends to lover situation, but it just felt a little bit messy in its execution.
Oh yeah, you were talking to me about that.
Yeah, so he's a professional hockey player, she is a ballerina, but she is engaged and is about to be married to this person that her dad wants her to marry, like some kind of arranged marriage situation, which I don't feel like that happens nowadays. So that felt a little far-fetched. But the guy was like,
I mean, it depends on the culture, but it doesn't sound like this was necessarily.
No, it was like for business,
right? And that's kind of like that doesn't.
Yeah, so it just didn't feel very realistic in the way that it was executed. And then she finds out that her fiance was cheating on her and leaves the altar. Basically, he rescues her from the altar, and they have this kind of whirlwind romance right off of the coattails of her leaving her fiance. But the fiance and her father are like, no, you need to get married, don't embarrass us. And it's like, no father would want his daughter to marry a cheater just for business. And if he really does, like, she made it seem like he was a good father, and then at the end he wasn't because of this. And it again, the execution felt a little bit messy. So that part with the fiance or the ex-fiance in this situation felt a little bit messy, which is why I gave it a little bit of a lower rating. But I still really enjoyed the book overall. But I did decide after that I was going to leave the last two books for a later date. I'm not actually sure if I read them in July. I've read one more. I read Reckless, but I don't remember which month I read that in. So then what I decided is I wanted to switch gears to a different series by Elsie Silver, which is...
This is Gold Rush Ranch, books 1, 1.5, and 2.
Yes. So...
More Love in Alberta.
That one, yeah, I think is in Alberta. So the first one is about this girl who she was a known horse trainer, I believe, from Europe. And she is hired on by this guy who his ranch is in trouble because they got into some PR nightmare, and he needs a new person to come and train their horses.
I really don't. I'm very interested now. That is the second time that there's been a PR issue with ranching. Is that like a thing? I
don't think so. I mean, I have no idea. I know nothing about bull riding and or horse training.
It's just funny to think it's like the first guy was like, I'm going to lose my sponsorship with the big milk.
Well, in this one, it's something like the grandfather owned the farm and in the ranch, and he made some deals to ensure that his horses won or something. So there was like a
so he
like a
fixed
scandal.
the races.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the grandson is taking over off of his death and, you know, trying to get the ranch back on track. So this girl comes from, like I said, Europe, and he gives her an ultimatum, basically, like, look at these horses. All I'm going to show you is their profiles, and you're going to pick one and you're going to make them track ready. And if you manage to do that by the next race, then you can keep your job. And if not, I'll give you a great letter of recommendation, and then you got to get out of here. So she takes on this horse who he's bred to be an amazing racehorse, but he looks great on paper, but she can tell that something's wrong. And so when she meets him, he is aggressive. He won't let anybody get near him. And then she basically just recognizes that he's using that aggression to mask his fear of humans. So she's not too sure why he's afraid of humans, but she works with the horse, and then the two humans do end up falling for each other. But it's kind of like an enemies to lovers, because they don't start off on the greatest foot, and it does take them a while to kind of get their romance going. But overall, I did enjoy it. I'm not sure what I rated it.
You gave it 3.75, and then there's a 1.5 called Out the Gate. I guess, is it like a novella?
Yes. Yeah, that was a novella.
You gave that a 2.75.
Okay, and the reason why... So this story is the story of the grandfather and how he met the grandmother. And the story starts off with the main female character being 10 years old and the main male character being 20. And he's working as a farm hand, and she's in love with him. And he works for them for 8 years. And over those 8 years, this 10-year-old grows up to be an 18-year-old, still in love with him. He is now 28 years old, and he's going off to the army. And she basically, as he's leaving, she's 18 at this time, but mind you, they met when she was 10. She'd loved him since she was 10, and he was 20. She kisses him, and he's like, "You're too young. I don't feel that way about you," and leaves. But in the 3 or 4 or 5, however many years he's away with the army, he's holding a candle for her, she's holding a candle for him, and when he returns, they have this romance and they get together. The reason why I didn't like it is because I just had the ick that she was this child who, you know, and then when he like, the main male character seems to be the only one that has an issue with their history. Everyone else is like, "No, you're like family. We love you. We're so happy that you're with our daughter, even though you met her when she was a child." Like, it's just, I'm okay with an age gap, but more so when, like, the main characters meets
when they meet when they're adults. Not when they're children. Yeah.
So it personally gave me the ick.
It's given me the ick too.
Yeah, so that's why it got such a low rating. I couldn't really enjoy it for that reason, but I mean, if you take that part out of it, it wasn't a bad romance. It just, for me, I didn't love that.
Now we do have to pick up the pace a little, but Photo Finish, book 2.
Photo Finish is a story about the main male character's from the first book's brother, and I don't really, and I think like one of the jockeys for the ranch. So they have a romance, and she ends up hurting herself in a race, so she needs to move into his house because his house is the only one that has a bathroom on the main floor kind of deal, and so they have to live with each other. It's kind of like a forced proximity romance, and he's holding some secrets, she's holding some secrets, and together they end up having they built this beautiful trust together and a decent relationship. So I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we're going to have any more books by this author, but it was L.C. Silver. It seems like Jess really enjoyed these. So if you're looking for like a nice, easygoing, kind of cowboy-esque themed romance novel, I would recommend, I guess.
For sure.
Okay. Now we're gonna change into a new territory. This is what I've been hearing Jess talk a lot about this past month. She's been reading shifter books.
A decent amount, yeah.
So it's like the main characters are kind of like werewolves, but they turn into like wolves. And then
sometimes wolves, but sometimes other animals too, like jaguars, foxes, whatever. They're just they're shifters,
right.
So they can change into any animals. But for this series in particular, most of them are wolves,
right? And then the whole like spice, and then the whole kind of like draw to it is it's kind of like the mated kind of thing. It's
yeah,
kind of
like a bonded mate. So that entire series, I could not tell you individually what each book is about. They're very short. They're very quick.
Yeah, Weston Pack books 1 through 5 by Julie Treadle.
Yeah, so they follow the Weston family, and so each sibling has a romance. Some were better than others. But for the most part, they were very short, very quick. They were free on Audible. They were a part of my Audible Plus subscription. So that's how I read them.
Spice level.
The spice level was pretty low. Like they weren't super heavily spicy because again, they were very short. So for them to be heavily spicy, the majority of the book would just be spice. So it has a tasteful amount of spice for the length of book. Decent amount of romance. Most of it's predictable. Most of it is, just kind of like a cozy, quick read. And I think I rated them all decently the same.
Across the board, they're all like 3 to 3.75. One of them you gave 2.75, book 2, Fighting Destiny, but could have just been because maybe that one didn't like something about the characters.
Yeah, I think it was something about how they got together or whatever. But for the most part, they were decent reads. Again, when you're going into this type of book, you're not expecting a 5-star read. You're expecting, a cheesy supernatural romance. So for what it was, I enjoyed it. And I actually started then after the spin-off series, which the
Collier Pack.
Yeah, so
1 through 6.
So in the Weston Pack, the last sibling ends up marrying someone from the Collier Pack, and so then that starts off all the siblings from the Collier Pack to start getting their happily ever afters. And again,
same vibe.
Same vibe, but what I liked is that it did circle back to the Weston Pack, so you did see those characters from the other stories too. And she again has multiple series, but they all connect just like that God of Malice book author does, but she had a smaller library, much shorter book, so I was able to get through them pretty quickly.
Okay. Now we are going into some Sarah J. Maas books here, so Court of Wings and Ruin.
I finally finished it. It took me 7 years, but I finished it.
And 2.5 stars.
Well, it took me 7.5 years to read it, so I'm not going to rate it that high. It was not for me. I honestly think that the second half of that book kind of ruined the series for me, unfortunately. And I know a lot of people love a Court in Thorns and Roses, and I've said it before on the podcast that book 2 of that series was my favorite book for a very, very long time. And I did like the first half of the book, but basically it fell flat for me towards the end. And so it took me 7.5 years to finish it. I finished it, didn't love it, but I tried to go to the novella.
You got A Court of Frost and Starlight.
With an open mind.
Novella, 3.5. You gave it 3 stars, so.
Yeah, so it wasn't bad. It was a decent bridge, but it felt very much like a bridge book. Like it didn't really add too much.
Not enough meat on the bones.
Not enough meat on the bones. Like it was very fluffy, very like almost like a companion side quest piece. Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
It's like a fan fiction, but written as if it was in the plot of the world. Where you're like, this is just adding to my mental, emotional carry that I have for these characters.
Yeah. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was what it was.
Court of Silver Flames, book 4.
So this book follows now Nesta and Cassian.
But Nesta's awful.
I know, and the thing is I was like, maybe this book will redeem her, and it didn't. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people think that it does. I think she was still Nesta at her core, and I think Cassian personally deserves better than her. I think he was great. Loved his characterization. Liked some of the background stuff with some of the other characters, but I found in this book in particular Feyre's character and Rhys-Anne's character was just written almost like out of character. Like the way that they interacted with everybody, they seemed so 2D. They did not seem like she wrote 3 books about these characters, and then when she wrote them in this book, it was like she forgot everything about them. Like
she uploaded all of her books into an AI cloud sourced server and said, write these characters' parts back into the book.
Yeah, I felt Feyre was not herself, and I felt Rhys-Anne also wasn't. And some people I think argue that because it's in Nesta's point of view that's why they're written that way, but I'm like, no, if an author knows their character, she's gonna write them genuinely, even like to the reader, even if the
point of view changes.
even if the point of view changes and the narrator's unreliable, right? Like you can have an unreliable narrator. That's a great literary trope or literary device to use in writing, but it was weak. I didn't like it. I liked a lot of the side characters, like the new characters, like Gwen was great, and the other new Illyrian female that they had in the book was good. I will probably still read the next book of the series when it comes out, because I think it's going to follow Asriel, and I really like him as a character.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
But
is he Shadow Daddy?
He is. Yeah, he's a shadow singer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I know Rhys-Anne is Shadow Daddy, but I feel like of all of them,
well, Rhys-Anne's like the Night Daddy.
Yeah, exactly. Rhys-Anne is Twilight Daddy. Cassian is Muscle Daddy.
Yep.
And Asriel is Shadow Daddy.
Yeah. So I personally did not think Nesta redeemed herself, and didn't really love the book because of that. But
what a great moment to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's done.
It's done. Now, another Sarah J. Maas book, House of Earth and Blood. This is the Crescent City book 1.
Yeah, so this book actually surprised me. I had tried it, I tried to get into it when it first came out, and I read like a few pages and I was like, do you know what? I don't think I'm ready to digest this right now. And I'm glad I waited, because I don't think I would have been able to enjoy it as much in the past than I did now. So overall, I think it was a really good book. What I would comment about it is the world building was very chaotic and difficult to follow at times, to the point where I was confused on who certain characters were, what their powers were, what race they were, because there was a lot of different, like there was vampires, there was angels, there was a bunch of different classes that it was a little bit confusing.
That was one of the I just jumping in. One of the things that I always thought was really strange from like a classical fantasy sense was when vampires become a race. It's interesting because like we have like a conceptual of vampires as monsters, like creatures that have been turned, but then there's like an entire another version of vampires, and they get melded. It's not often differentiated where it's like, well, no, it's not that these people were turned into vampires. It's just that these are different. This is a different like fantasy race of beings that will subsist on blood.
Exactly.
And have innate magic. Yeah. But you could just as easily call them like elves.
Exactly.
That just drink blood.
Exactly. And then on top of all of that confusion, they had this thing called the drop, where basically when people become of age, they have to do this thing called the drop. And they're...
It's when their nuts descend and
no.
their voice
and they basically have to have a guide that guides them through it. And they basically like connect with their internal magic or something, and they have like puberty. 6 seconds to return like to consciousness, or else they die. And then once they do, they're basically like immortals. So it was a little bit confusing, and the way in which that it all kind of happened, there was like this first light business. So once they wake up out of this drop, they have this thing called the first light, and that's what like powers their city. That's like their electricity, kind of. So I'm assuming there's more if you continue the series.
Teenagers doing whippets and passing out and waking up is what powers their city,
basically. So it was all very confusing. I didn't really get it. I did like the main characters.
I do like the idea that what they're basically doing is they're like, okay, you're in the prime of your life. When you're going to pass out, it's going to be this magical moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the most important thing in your pubescent life, and we're going to extract it and take it from you to power our city.
Exactly. Like, it feels weird. I'm sure that there is more
like a
to it.
microcosm of like literally stealing the dreams of the young to like keep the civilization.
Oh, totally,
running.
totally. And it seems like totally like nobody questions why this first light is taken. And I'm like, okay, clearly like there's something going on. I do know that this series does connect to A Court of Thorns and Roses somehow, but I did start book 2 and I had to let it go because I really just felt the first book was a true like it was great on its own. And then when I started the next book, I just got vibes that the two main characters went from like finally being in a content place in their relationship where they were going to move forward. So I was like, okay, great. The next book, I should see that continue. And I was like, they took 60 steps back. And I didn't like it. So I stopped reading it.
Can I just say, I'm so impressed that you've read 53 books and you can still remember minute details like, oh, the two characters were like, their relationship wasn't progressing the way I was hoping. It's like, I don't remember what I ate yesterday.
You
know
do
what I mean?
probably see that I'm not naming them by
Yeah,
characters
but
because I can't
still,
remember everybody's names.
You don't
but
matter, names don't matter. It's not the feelings.
yeah. So anyway, I thought it was a really good book on its own. Didn't love how the second book started. I might go back to it at some point, but for now I moved on to other series. And actually when I was reading the second book of that series, I was kind of in this place where I was like, I don't know if I want to continue this, and the cover of the next Fourth Wing book had come out, so it made me do a reread of Fourth Ring and Iron Flame. So those are my next reads for the month. We did do a whole episode on them, so we will skip through it.
Tune into our Iron Flame Fourth Wing review by Rebecca Yaros if you want to listen to that. But they are very good books. I was a bit like, maybe it's because I was sick or I don't know. I was like a little bit down on them, but no, they were both really good books.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a new series, The Bonds That Tie, book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So these are fantasy mysterious romances.
So they're actually a reverse harem, and I am not a reverse harem fan. I'm not a harem fan. I usually like reading stories where it's two main characters who fall in love. I find that when there's multiple love interests, I usually don't like it, but this was my favorite series of the month. It was so good.
You rated all of them 4 stars and up.
Yeah, they were really, really good. Great. Like, it starts off with all of the characters having these distinct personalities, these distinct prejudices, or these distinct like parts about them that made it so that they could not come together. So there was like hatred, there was anger, and by the end of it, they were all so beautifully united. And it does like a bonded situation. So basically the idea is that there is a society within our human society called the bonded. And if you're a part of the bonded, you likely have some kind of a supernatural ability for yourself, and you share your blood when you're born, and through your blood, you're able to find out who your fated mates are, basically. So there's always a central bond. So one person who is like the main person of the relation of the bond, and then everybody else kind of is attached to that one person. So the main bond character is female in this book, and she has 5 bonded mates, and they are all super powerful. 2 of them happen to be brothers, and this as a series, and basically once you all come together, you as a bonded group become even more powerful. So your powers kind of combine, they kind of settle, they mature, and you become more powerful. So because they're already powerful figures within the community, they're like, okay, this bonded group is going to be so powerful, and everybody was really looking forward to them coming together. And then finally it was found out who the main central bond person was, and they were literally going to the hospital to meet her because unfortunately she was in an accident. So that's how they found out her blood type, I guess, or how they actually got together, it's a little murky, but she was in hospital. All of her bonded are basically getting on planes or trains or whatever to get to her to the hospital to meet her. And by the time they get there, she's gone, and she's gone for like 5 years. So they feel betrayed. They like, this is such a sacred part of their community, and their bondage just leaves them. So there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of hate, like upset within the group. And then
I remember as you were reading it, you were kind of talking to me about like, well, here's these characters, and then like this guy, like these guys are just assholes, and these
they
other
were
guys
really
are
awful
really
to her.
nice, and like, but then like she's like made a connection with these guys, but not these guys, and I don't understand, and then like literally the next book, you were like, okay, I get it now. Oh my god, it all made sense. It's all great.
So there's a lot that's kind of kept from the reader until critical points within the book. So it was written really well that you knew that there was more to the story, but you got to understand who these characters were and why they were feeling the way that they were feeling before you fully understood what happened.
Yeah, and you got to actually like get the payoff.
Exactly.
It wasn't like they just left it hanging. Like you did actually get resolution.
Exactly. And what I find in a lot of these books, when a lot of the people are angry, they're angry usually for a stupid reason, and they're just holding on to this grudge because like they're like, you have not proven to me that you are not a good person, but I'm going to hold on to this prejudice. No, like this person, by abandoning them without explanation, they were extremely betrayed. And within their community, it made sense. It really had a negative impact on them within their community. So you saw how kind of they were trying to unite, even though they all had their own issues, their own traumas, their own their own problems. And by the end, they all come together. And even the person who had the most trauma and the most reasons to not forgive the main character, eventually they do, and their relationship is just so special. So I find a lot with reverse harems, what ends up happening is one or two of the characters, it's like they're just there to be there. Like they don't have personalities. They don't have a true bond with the main character or with the group. And it seems like, why there's so many people here with 5 main male characters of the story. It's like, okay, how is this going to work? It was great. All of them had a special connection with her for one reason or another. They all had their own roles within the bonded group. And in the end, they are tasked with saving the world and do. And it's done in such a way that, again, the information is being provided to the reader and the characters at specific strategic times in the plot that it just made it such an overall satisfying read that I actually cannot wait to reread them. They are in Kindle Unlimited if you are a Kindle Unlimited subscriber. I read them all. They were part of my digital reads this month, and 10 out of 10 would 100% go back and reread them again at another point in time. Love them very much.
Fantastic. And just a reminder, these are the Bonds That Tie series by Jay Bree. Okay. Coming off of that high note, we've got a couple books that kind of sound like they're satire when you read the titles. So we've got The Cock Down the Block, The Wiener Across the Way, and The Pussy Next Door.
Yeah, so the first book of that series, it was really cute. It was basically this guy named Chris, and he was in love with this girl named Trixie. They grew up next door neighbors, and Trixie was kind of like the sister that was a part of their family that never really was like, she was a really good friend of the family, and she's a librarian, and she owns chickens, and
hence the cock down the block.
And the Chris, he is a quarterback for some NFL football team in this place. I don't even remember what the football team is. But anyways, he's the quarterback. And he's been in love with Trixie for forever. And he wants to try and woo her. So he goes to his brother, who's quote unquote the love guru. And he's like, I really want Trixie to fall in love with me. He's like, all right, I got this game plan for you. Got to show her that you're not just her friend anymore. Because you guys have been just friends for so long. So you got to prove to her. You got to, put your hands on her. You got to do special things for her. And at the same time, Trixie is planning her high school reunion. And when she's planning this, she had gone with Chris to a event of his as like his friend. They went as friends, but they were like a date. So they were photographed together. And the mean girls from high school is like, why are you photographed with him? Did you have to like hire him to like take you to this? Like, you're so pathetic. And she's like, no, he's my boyfriend. And so she's like, oh crap, now I have to ask him. So he's already trying to woo her. And she's like, crap, now I need a fake boyfriend. So she's like, will you be my fake boyfriend? And he's like, yeah, sure, I can prove myself to you. And he's like, I'm gonna win her as a real boyfriend. And so it's very tropey, very cute. I really liked it. And what I liked is the main female character was curvy. She was a bigger girl, and that was a huge aspect of the book. So if that's not your cup of tea, then maybe skip this one. It usually isn't mine, and probably I knew going into it what I was coming to, so I kind of, dampered my expectations for the book, and overall I did like it. It did focus a lot about weight, and that's usually a little bit triggering for me, so I don't love that aspect of the book, but I knew that going into it, and despite those parts of the book, I still enjoyed it. And the second book of the series is
the wiener across the
basically a Taylor Swift and Travis, whatever that guy's name is. I am a Swiftie, but I was a Swiftie when Taylor Swift was writing Taylor Swift album, like her original album. So I haven't really kept up with her in recent years. I still like her music, but I'm not a huge Swiftie. So anyways, it's basically a romance story that follows that. So the main female character, again, is a curvy girl, but she is a pop star, and the main character is a football player, and he ends up giving her a friendship bracelet with his phone number on it, and her publicist basically wants her to find a boyfriend. I don't really remember why. I think because she had just recently broken up with somebody, and they wanted to show that she was over this guy and with somebody else. It's basically a Taylor Swift and Travis football player.
Travis Sportball.
Travis Sportball. Fan fiction made public, and it was pretty good for what it was.
Pussy Next Door, you only gave it a 2.
I hated the main female character, Willa. So it basically, she is written as this wanderlust type character where she's very whimsical.
It's this one.
Yeah, and she hold
on. I'm gonna give the review of this book. Okay, so there's this lady. She's got rich uncles, and they own a cafe, and they're like, our cafe's in the red, and she's like, that's cool. I'm traveling the world, and I'm living my best life, hot girl summer. I'm going to do whatever I want to do with my life. And they're like, weren't they like, we're sick, or somebody was sick? So
the uncle was sick, and he's like, everybody needs to come home.
Everyone needs to come home.
Because I have news. So she goes home on their dime, I'm pretty sure. And she's staying with them, and they're like, I'm cancer free or whatever. I'm not sick anymore. It doesn't even say what he's sick with. Yeah. But we want to go on a cruise, but we need somebody to watch our coffee shop that's not even making any money anyways. Yeah. But we need somebody to watch it.
We're rich, and we have this coffee shop that's losing us money, but we need somebody to watch it. Hi, niece, who is basically traveling the world doing nothing with your life. Here, have a coffee shop.
And she's like, but I just want to go and travel, but like I feel so selfish about that, so I guess I'll stay.
I guess I'll own and run this coffee shop.
Yeah. And then she's like, there, but she's like, can't wait. She can't wait to leave, and her whole family's, honestly, with the exception of the uncles, is just awful. And the main male character, I think his name is Hayes, if I'm remembering correctly. He was very sweet. He was very nice. I liked him.
Isn't he like a sport ball player too?
Yeah, so all of the sport ball players are brothers. They're all 8 of them. There are 8 siblings. One of them's a sister, but 7 brothers, 1 sister. All their football family. The mom passed away when
after having 8 kids, shortly
after the daughter was born, and the dad was a football coach, so he raised them to be football players. And so he was a great character, and I liked some of the family background stuff. But even in the end, they literally form this family meeting, and they're trying to solve the problem of, we want to be together, but she wants to travel the world, and I have a literal NFL football career here, but I'm willing to give up my football career to follow this girl that I haven't talked to in years, who's like my best friend's sister. because she can't stay put in our small town. Like, it was just really stupid. And at one point they're like, do we have like our heads up our ass? Like, are we being dumb? And I'm like, yes, this whole book was dumb. Like, even the characters are saying it. Like, it was so dumb to me. Like, the conflict was so stupid, and just the way in which the characters went about things felt so wrong.
It sounded like from the way you recapped it, that she went from being like, I could never love him because I couldn't be tied down, to like literally next chapter being like, I've never loved anyone more than my life.
Well,
like,
not so much. It was more like she was like, I can't like him. Like, I can just have a fling with him because I know that I don't want to be in this town and I don't want to take him away from his career. So she's like basically setting herself up for failure. But this guy, he's very serious about her, and it's very obvious from the beginning that he doesn't want a fling. Like, he's a virgin. He hasn't necessarily saved himself for her, but he's focused his life on his schooling and his career. And now he's finally like, I think I have a little bit of time now that I'm not in school anymore for a girlfriend. And he kind of like puts all his eggs in her basket. And I just feel like she doesn't necessarily treat him the way that he should be treated, right? Like, she should have then said from the beginning, listen, I don't want to be here. I don't want this relationship. Like, they didn't have a history rich where she's like, you know, I've been in love with him for years and now I have to pick between this love of my life and
he's looking for the love of his life and she's like, meh.
Yeah, she's very blasé about it.
And then she kind of like realizes, oh wow, no, this is a great catch, and then just kind of, okay.
Yeah, and then she's like, I literally left so I could be away from my parents because, like, my parents were awful to me. They didn't support me. But at every turn, her brother and her mother are, like, guilting her into, like, staying away from him. And there's, like, this whole aspect with the brother and him. Honestly, it was just, I didn't like the book. I'm sorry, I did finish it, but I didn't like it. It was not my favorite of the series. There is going to be more books in the series. I will probably read the next one.
8 siblings, so
yeah, and I think each sibling is supposed to get a book, so we'll see. I'll probably read the next one because I did enjoy the first 2, but the third one, I hated Willa and I hated her whole family. Dang. Sorry.
Well, hey, not some of them are going to be clunkers, you know. Funny story by Emily Henry.
So the very first. Fun fact, the very first book that got me into reading again is actually Book Lovers by this author. So this book is so I read Happy Place and I didn't love that one by her, and I kind of didn't pick up another one, but this one just recently came out and it was available through a Skip the Line loan, and I was like, do you know what, no skimming off my back, I'll try it. And it was a really good concept. So it's basically the 2 main characters have recently been dumped, and they left the main female character's fiance dumped her after his bachelorette or his bachelor party because his best girlfriend confessed her love for him, and he decides to end the relationship with the main female character.
Okay.
And the main male character who she moves in with after she's been dumped because she has nowhere to live, she's like, I need a roommate, turns out to be the girl's ex-boyfriend. So they are grieving their romances and are living together, and they get an invitation to their ex's wedding. Oh yes. And so they decide to fake a relationship between the 2 of them so that they're gonna go to their ex's wedding. And it was funny. It was emotional. I mean, is it the best read I've ever read? No, but for what it was, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I enjoyed the characters. I liked the setting. I liked how it felt somewhat genuine, even though the circumstances obviously is very, like, I don't think that's a story you hear about very often. I liked the banter. The conflict felt a little out of character almost. Like, it felt like it was just conflict because the author needed some conflict at the end of the story. So that I didn't love about it, but overall, very enjoyable read. Okay. And I would recommend it.
The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo.
So Leigh Bardugo is, I loved her series. I liked the other series I should have. So, oh my god, Six of Crows and oh my gosh, what's the other one? Her Geisha series. They were good. I've read a few of them. And I was really hopeful for this book because I knew it was a standalone. So I was kind of excited about that because I'm like, I already like her writing and it's not a huge series that I'm going to have to wait on. It's just a standalone. I'm going to give it a try. But I didn't love it. I didn't love the main female character, honestly. She basically has this power, but it's like secretive. And literally her safety is tied to her keeping her powers to herself. But she's just so power hungry that she accidentally like her employer ends up finding out about it, and then her employer exploits her, but she like purposely like shows her powers to people to basically kind of like get herself out of poverty. And it's just the way that it goes about is like, well, if you really wanted to get out of poverty, just leave this employment and like go somewhere else. Like, you're not tied to it. Like, it felt very messy. The romance in it kind of felt just not genuine at all. It felt like the two main characters were just together because plot. Like, I didn't feel a spark between them.
Romance, like between characters, plot, and romance, it was a swing and a miss.
It totally, yeah.
Okay. Sin Trilogy book number 1. I didn't see the other books. So
nope, I only read the first book.
Richer Than Sin, 2.75 out of 5.
Again, it wasn't really a great read for me. I honestly can't even tell you what it was about. All I remember is that there was, I think, a female character that left town to marry a rock star who cheated on her multiple times, and there was this other guy who one of the times in between her breakup with the rock star, they had this passionate one night stand, but their families were rivals or something. When she finds out that he's
too complicated,
yeah, it was so complicated, and it wasn't good, and I didn't love it.
All right, moving on, because we can't keep talking about the clunkers and the stinkers. The Fake Mate. So
The Fake Mate, the reason why I put this book on hold in the library is because I had read Bride and I absolutely loved it.
By Lena Ferguson.
Yeah, so the Bride is from Ali Hazelwood. So when you go on Goodreads and you look at like books like this book was there. So I was like, I'll put it on hold. Let's see what it's about. It is actually a published Alpha Omega story, which surprised me. You
don't see many of those.
I know you don't. And it's like mainstream, like she's a popular author. So I was really surprised. But I felt like the author didn't know that much about ABO Omegaverse.
For the listener, ABO or Omegaverse, Alpha, Beta, Omega, it's kind of like there's like alphas, and they're like the ones that they're like the aggressive ones, the ones that run everything.
Well, the more dominant
ones.
Omegas are usually more submissive.
Betas are betas. They're just kind of side characters.
They're more
neutral. And then it's like you have a mate that you're like bonded with, and then like when the mates can like tell that they're bonded when they meet their mate, and it's like once you bond with your mate, that's it, that's your mate,
like your fated one.
Yeah.
And in this case, they're both doctors, which I like. I actually do like medical stories, like where the main characters are in the medical field. So they're both doctors. They're both she's just starting out, and he's like a heart surgeon who's like on to being like chief of staff or something. So he's way high up, and her grandmother really wants her to date, like find her mate. So she keeps setting her up on these really, really bad dates. And so she's like, I can't go on another bad date. So she pretends that she's in a relationship. And so her grandma's like, who is it? And then this doctor walks into the break room. She's like, this guy. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about? And so it just so happens that he also needed a situation for a fake relationship. And so together they make this contract where they're like, we're just going to pretend for a short period of time, and then we're going to move on. But then they end up falling in love with each other. There's some conflict. There's some blackmail. There's some intrigue there. Overall, it's not the best book I've ever read. It's not the worst book I've ever read. I enjoyed it for what it was.
All right. That's good. I mean, I'm glad to hear that it's, as I said, there aren't many ABOs, and I know that it's a genre that you sometimes enjoy. So nice to see an actual book, not just fan fiction.
Yeah.
Aspect and Anchor, books 1 and 2, Bound to the Battle God and Sworn to the Shadow God.
So I specifically was looking for a book where death was a romanceable character. We've talked about that on the podcast before as something that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And the second book is that the god of death is the romance character. But I felt like, okay, well, I'm going to read this series. I should read the first one first. And I loved the first book. It's basically a situations going on where basically the gods of this world, they have there's like a father who is like an almighty, all-knowing, all-powerful, can't do no wrong type of character, and he has children who are gods, but they're not perfect. They sin, they get they misbehave basically because they're immortal. So basically to punish his children, to make them better gods, he sends them to Earth. He sends their sins to Earth. So like one is lust, one is lies, one is basically like lethargy, and the other is arrogance. I haven't used the exact words. Basically, like yeah. So sloth. They get kind of. So they use different words for it, same principle. But the same principle. So there's 4 aspects on this planet, because it's a different planet. It's not Earth, it's like Eos or something like that.
It's not Earth, it's air.
I think it's Eos, AOS. So they get sent to during this specific celebration that it's meant to welcome the gods, but the gods hadn't been on this plane for over 400 years, so nobody really knows what's going on, and it's very unexpected that they show up. But it just so happens that every single person who ends up having to like the main character, she's actually from our world. She's from Earth, and she accidentally gets sucked into this world and basically becomes the god's anchor, not even knowing what that is. And it's basically a human who knows nothing about this world and a god who knows nothing about this world come together and are supposed to rely on each other to survive this like battle of aspects. So all the other, in order for the god to reascend, they have to kill and absorb the other aspects so that they can kind of like go through those sins and like learn from them from a human mortal aspect, and then kind of return to their godhood. So it's a romance. It's a funny.
So it's Fortnite but with deities.
I don't know. I guess so. Sure.
They have it. It's like a no hole. It's like they're all like trapped on this world and they all need to kill each other, and there can only be one winner chicken dinner, basically.
Yeah, and it was really good. It was really funny. It was long, like way longer than I think maybe it needed to be, but I enjoyed it.
Book 2 is 646 pages.
Yeah, they were longer books.
Book 2 you rated a lot lower.
I did. So again, really liked the first book and was really, really excited going to the second, because again, the second book was the whole reason why I picked up the series in the first place. But where the first book, it was like two of the main characters were naive. In the second book, the god basically went through these trials. He sees that this other god from the previous book found a mortal lover basically and found true love and is really jealous of him. So he's like, I'm stuck with this anchor that I don't like. Now that I've reascended into my godhood, I want a better anchor. And so he kind of goes to the fates, and the fates like, okay, fine, we'll give you a different anchor, but you have to redo the whole trial again. And he's like, okay, fine, but I want to keep my memories. So I know like what's going on. Like, I don't want to go in blind like I did last time. I want to keep my memories. So that's why this book I didn't like as much, is because it was, again, a female from our world being sent to this world to be an anchor. So she didn't know what was going on. She actually thought it was a video game in the beginning, and she felt like she was like like a playable character. Like, she kind of like went about it in a kind of whimsical, kind of dumb way. But the main male character knew exactly what was going on and like didn't help the main character. It was almost like he kind of set her up to fail a little bit. And the romance wasn't as rich, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, because innately it's not two naive characters.
No,
right?
like the power imbalance was off.
Right, exactly. So you have a character who's like almost grooming this other person to fall in. Yeah, it's weird. That's weird.
And like the god basically claimed that he fell in love with her at first sight, but he was lies. So like he basically lied to her the entire time, but she was not smart enough to really test him to see if he was lies. It just it didn't work. Like literally, I think I was 60% into the book, and that's when she figured out he was lies. And I'm like, okay, I have read like 400 pages, and this girl still hasn't figured it out yet. Like the reader knew it from like their first interactions, but like this girl did not pick up on it, and then she's like, you lied to me, and it's like, well, he is lies. Like it felt really dumb.
He can't tell the truth. I don't know what to tell you.
I know, and she just was not smart enough to keep questioning him, and so I didn't like it as much. And I mean, it ended fine.
Look, it's a hard sell too, though, right? You get a long book, a lot of dialogue options, and then one of the characters can only ever lie. It's like, eventually the reader's going to be like, how has she not caught on?
Exactly. And so it kind of soured the series a little bit for me. I think I will read book 3 and 4 of the series at some point, because one of the characters from the first book, the 4th book, is about her. So I liked her, so I might go back and read it, but the second book kind of soured it for me. So I took a break.
So what about Fireborn? This is the Aurelian Cycle, book 1.
So this is, I think, the only YA book that I picked up this month, and I had heard really good things. A lot of people said that if you like Fourth Wing, this is like the YA version of it. I, again, didn't love the main female character of this book. Her and the main male character are supposed to be childhood friends, and she just, like, at every turn seems to be mad at the main character for being himself almost. And it's like, you've been friends since you were childhood. You knew all these things about him since childhood, but it seems like in this point of the plot, for whatever reason, she's like angry at him for basically being who he is, without giving too many spoilers away of the book. Like, I didn't like it, and I didn't love how the author kind of framed her, like the main female character at like, so it kind of ruined it for me.
When it came to the characters, it was a swing and a miss.
Exactly. And so I did finish the book, but I really had to force myself to get it. It took me like, if you see like the dates, it didn't take you 7 years. No, it didn't take me 7 years, but I considered multiple times dropping it, so I did not continue on with the series.
We got the Duskwalker Brides, book 1 and 2, A Soul to Keep and A Soul to Heal.
Yeah, so again, these are also on Kindle Unlimited, but I actually bought the audiobooks on Audible. And it's basically Ancient Magnus Bride meets Demon Slayer as per the author in her author's notes. So if you know anything about those animes, and you want a dark romance with like a dark monster romance, this series is for you. The first book was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Again, did not expect to like it as much as I did. But they call them Dustwalkers, the I guess male monster characters. They're very kind of clueless, and they just want love, and it was very sweet and heartwarming. Like, it wasn't too dark, in my opinion, like in terms of dark romances go. Like, it does have dark elements, but I've read way darker. I expected kind of the male main character to be more dark, and they were just like teddy bears. They were so sweet,
just like naivety.
They just wanted love. They were lonely and they wanted love. They'd lived for centuries and they just wanted love. It was so cute. I loved it. And the main female character, she had also grown up ostracized and alone. So like, they just bonded and they had a really genuinely nice relationship. And so in the first book, I really enjoyed. The second book, I had some issues with the main female character. Just some of the decisions that she makes as a character. I understand she was going through a bit of a depressive episode. So I do recognize that the depression did cloud some of her decisions. But ultimately, I didn't love her as a character, and it spoiled the book a little bit for me. It was also a 22-hour long audiobook, and I'm sorry, I feel like a lot more should happen than it did in the 22 hours that happened. More romance. I felt like the main characters were just together because they had to be. It didn't feel as genuine as the first, so it kind of spoiled the series for me.
Sorry for anybody who was wondering, I don't know if you heard, if that background audio kept in, but I was playing with my wedding ring, and it fell off my hand onto the floor, and I bent down to pick it up, and I farted. So if you might hear a clattering and then just a random soft fart, if that. I'm not editing it out. If that kept in the audio, hey, you know what? It's 10 p.m. We're doing it the best we can.
We're almost done, guys.
God. Oh, shit.
Anyways, second book didn't like as much. There, for whatever reason, isn't any more audiobooks for that series. There is more in this series, but for whatever reason, there isn't an Audible credit for it, like a Audible version yet. So I didn't keep reading them, but I am interested to see what the rest of the series has to offer.
All right. Well, listener, thank you for keeping in with us. We're almost there. I know we're over an hour in, but this is Jess read a lot of books. What can I tell you? I don't make the rules. I do make the rules. You're trapped here. You're my prisoner. And speaking of prisoner, we're gonna talk about a series that Jess has been raving about. Ice Planet Barbarians.
So actually the first book I had read before. I don't remember when or why I read it, but I remembered reading it and being like, this is funny. I will probably come back to the series at some point when I want something just like funny to fill my to read. And coming off of like a monster romance, I was like, I'm gonna go back to that Alien series. So I reread the first book. It was just as funny, just as entertaining as the first time I read it. And it basically is about a group of girls who were kidnapped from Earth and were on a spaceship, and their spaceship malfunctions, and they have to basically dump the quote-unquote cargo, which are the humans, on this ice planet, so that they can, I guess, either get repairs in their ship and then come back for them or something. So these girls are dumped on an ice planet, and the main character, Georgie, is like, I'm gonna go off and I'm gonna find help. And she finds this blue alien dude who is like, you're my mate, and he greets her by licking her pussy. That's how their relationship starts. And she's like, is this a greeting here? Oh my god, this feels amazing. I probably should tell him to stop, but fuck, this feels good. And then there's a language barrier there for a little bit, but basically this guy ends up being his tribe's leader, and he helps the girls transition to their...
To quote the great Ursula, never underestimate the power of body language.
Yeah. So what it turns out that this tribe has 20 males and there's no females to go around. There's only like 4 females, and all of a sudden there's this ship full of fertile human females who basically they come at the perfect time.
No, they come at the perfect time.
Yeah, and then all these, so their idea of mates, they don't call them mates, they call them residents or residences or something, or resonance. I think resonance. And when you resonate with somebody, English, you basically like...
It's fine. Your brain is full of blue alien porn. Words get jumbled.
I think I've done pretty good so far, recalling all of these books' plots.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. So, anyway, so there's a female and an alien for every pairing. I think I read the first 3 books. They were pretty good. But there's only so much of the same thing that you can read before it gets a little bit boring.
Blue alien wienering that you can read about.
And I think there's like 14 books in this series.
Well, there's a lot of wienering to do.
Yeah. But anyways, the Alien series and the God trial series that we were talking about, it's from the same author, Ruby Dixon. So I really like her style of writing. She has a lot of humor from her characters. Like she's really good at writing humor into her books, and I really like her main female characters usually. So I do recommend her as an author if you want to try her out. And I will probably read more in the future. It's just not right now.
Okay, we're in the home stretch. We've got Dark Lies Duet, books 1 and 2.
Are those from July still?
Oh, no. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. We finished with Ice Planet Lovers.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Jess, that's an absurd amount of books that you've read.
I know. I'm quite proud of myself to remember as much as I did about them all.
You literally didn't miss one. I can't remember what I did last week. I don't even know where I am right now, but I do know that those barbarian boys give real good ice wieners.
Yep.
Jesus, what an outro. Sorry, everyone. It has been over an hour here on this podcast, but thank you very much to listening to our July wrap up. We try and get episodes out every Monday. So far, we've been able to accomplish that. Check us out on Spotify. We also upload on YouTube. It's being posted to Apple, I think, now. I got all that figured out. I think it's even on like Amazon Podcasts or something. So
find us where you listen to your regular podcast.
Yes, please. We need more than one listener a week. That would be lovely. You know what I'll do? Jess will listen. I'll listen. Set achievable goals, people. 2 listeners, you can make that happen for you. So, all that being said, awesome episode, Jess. I'm so impressed with your brain and your memory. But go ahead and give us that classic outro that you do every week without fail. It's always the same, and it's just that. Hit it.
Have a great summer, everyone.